Hi, welcome to the Real Generation Gap. I'm Rudy Ruiz.
I'm Fred Zattilli.
And today we're going to be talking about Alejandro Jodorowsky's 1970 film, El Topo. So this follows a gunslinger kind of wandering through the desert who takes on a mission to take on four master other gunfighters. And it is everything spiritual, dramatic, Western, surrealist, absurdist, an acid trip, whatever you can think of is this movie. And this was
nice summation.
Yeah.
That is what it is, right?
And this was your suggestion. So yeah, I'll pass it to you.
Well, thanks, Rudy. It really wasn't my suggestion. It was really suggested to me by my friend Amr Salgia. And this is a guy, American as me, born in Ohio, but extreme Indian heritage. He's a Jain, if you know the religion Jainism. And he's very spiritual that way. He's dedicated to that. He's an aerospace engineer and a very good filmmaker in his own right. In fact, maybe I'll show you one of he made some short films, you know, and really good photographer, travels the world and photographs everything, you know, and real good eye for color and light and all that good stuff. And he really wanted me to see this movie. He turned me on to Jodorowsky. And Jodorowsky himself is an interesting character. He's a Ukrainian Jew that was born and raised in Chile, or Chile if you're an American. And he had a tough childhood, and it shows in this movie because this movie's hard to watch. The reason I mention Amr and tell you the story about him is because he's obviously has subscribed to the show and watched some episodes, and he recommended this. And that's what I want y'all to do. You know, if there's a movie, because I would have never even known about this guy, you know, Alejandro Jodorowsky. But for this real movie fanatic, I mean, Amr is really an aficionado. And this movie is about as extreme as you can get. It has fantastic music. The music is so subliminal. To compose the music in this, you got to be way out there. This is not, you know, like Star Wars. Yeah. You know, it's really crazy. And the cinematography is fantastic. Yeah. And the thing that I love most about this is 1970 and the spaghetti westerns had happened. And I love the spaghetti westerns, especially Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but Hang 'em High, Man with No Name. I love every second of those movies. And this is almost like a spoof of that. Right. It's many stories all cast into one. And it's really worth watching, but it has no value. Like this movie's not going anywhere. I don't know why they made it. It's a completely art piece. This guy's not trying to gain an audience even. Yeah. Like the audience for this couldn't be more than 1% of the population. There was no market study. What do people like in a movie? No, the hell with the people, the hell with the whole audience. I'm making what I want to make. It's almost like how Megalopolis is now. Right. Yeah. That's another thing where the producer just said, I'm going to make the movie I want to make. I don't care if anybody, you know, like I don't want to see the reviews. And this is the same way. But this, you know, Jodorowsky, he has made many other movies and they're in this style. Yeah. If you are the 1% of the population that likes this, you'll want to watch the rest of them. Yeah. It's like David Lynch on psychedelic drugs. Yeah. Like if David Lynch, you know, went psychotic and took LSD, he would make movies like this. Yeah. That's how far out it is. I think it's the most far out movie that I can name. Yeah, it might be the most far out I've seen so far, or definitely in that running. I'm not sure what else to compare it to in this moment, but I also forgot to mention that, Jodorowsky not only directed this movie, but he stars in it. He wrote it. Right. And like I think, Rocky, you talked about the score. If I remember correctly, I think he did the music too. I think that was him. I think a relative of his did. Okay. Yeah. All right. But yeah, very much his film. You see a lot of Jodorowsky's in the credits. Yeah. You know, doing different things. His son plays his son in the movie. Yeah, his naked son. If you had a 7-year-old son, why would you have him completely naked? I mean, it's creepy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And he's got him on horseback and he's traveling across the desert. And the first thing he says is, you've turned 7 years old. This is your favorite toy of your childhood, and this is a picture of your mother. You have to bury these in the sand and turn your back on them because you're going to become a man now. Yeah. And that kid's pretty good with a gun. I mean, he's got that big revolver, right? Like, why would you write that into a movie and cast your son and have him naked in the movie? And I mean, it's just like, man, what kind of lunatic does this?
Yeah.
And for no purpose. Everything in this movie had no purpose. There was any scene in this movie could have easily been cut out and it wouldn't affect the content.
The movie could just not exist.
Right. Yes. Every scene could be cut out and you wouldn't miss anything.
Well, so this was your first time watching this too? No. Okay. You had seen it before.
No, I know. I watched it with Emmer and then I watched it myself and then I watched it again now.
Okay. Have your feelings on that has that remained consistent for you on each viewing?
I've actually liked it more.
Okay.
Each time. They had one character that's two men. One is a man with no arms.
Yeah.
And on his back, that he's carrying on his back, is a man with no legs. So the legs belong to this guy, but the arms are the other guy.
Yeah.
And they're doing all these things, climbing up ladders, you know what I mean? And cooperatively, the hands and the feet, and they're doing all these things. And what a bizarre character. Why did you have to make that guy? Then they have the one scene where they're in this town. This is all in the desert, so everything's remote. So everything that's happening is not mainstream in any way.
Yeah.
And he goes in this one town, and it's all like circus freak people, like people whose legs are on backwards and stuff like that. And it's like, where? This is all shot in Mexico. The scenes, they had this conical building, like a big cone, and it had like a hallway to another big cone. This was all made of adobe, and it's way out in the desert. This exists somewhere. They didn't make this for the movie.
Yeah.
This is a location that they found. Then they had the pit, this adobe pit, right? Where he was in there going berserk, running into the walls and stuff. Like that's somewhere in Mexico is that pit. The same thing with that tower. He had to climb the tower to meet the other gunslinger. He comes upon a town that's been slaughtered by a Mexican gang, and he wants to get revenge for the town. And he says, "Who did this?" And they said, "Well, the
colonel."
The colonel, right? And he's got 4 guys with him. He wants to hunt these guys down and kill them. But in the process of doing that, the colonel has a captured girl. When he kills the colonel and everything, she says, "Take me with you. I don't love you, but I will if you're the best. You have to be the best." And there's 4 other weird gunslingers, really weird people out in the desert here that have isolated themselves. And you have to take them on and kill you and kill them. And when you do, then you'll finally have my love, And so he doesn't care about her really, but he does want to take on the gunslingers because he feels like this is what he has to do to purify his essence to God. This is his what he's been put on the earth to do. He's God's creation. And so he wants to meet these people. And of course, they're like better gunslingers than he is. Because they're weirder than him.
Right.
And he's really weird already.
Yeah. It was quite a bit to take in. I don't think I have too much to say about it, honestly. And clearly it's very spiritual for him. There's some lessons going on that he's doing. There's a whole moment of, when he fails to kill the last guy because the dude kills himself first. Right. And he just, no, And then Mara,
he doesn't die. He takes the bullet, but he doesn't die.
Yeah, and then Mara leaves him, and then he gets taken in by the freak people. Oh yeah, because
they bring him back.
And so now they're living in this cave, and he's been there, I guess, for years, just kind of in a meditation. He's transformed into completely. His hair color is different. He's completely. And he shaved his beard off. And he's a god to them. Like, he's going to wake up and he's going to liberate us from this cave prison that we can't escape from. And there's a moment of literal like rebirth, right? When he's embracing that woman and then he's like sliding out from under her and
that was real weird how he was born, right?
Shaves his head and now he's like, okay, I'm going to be your savior.
The reason they thought he was the liberating god was interesting. The town isolated these freak people in the cave because they didn't want to see them.
Yeah.
And they couldn't stand seeing them. So they put them in this cave and he said, I'm going to make a tunnel from the cave back to the town.
Yeah.
And you can return to the town. But the town was full of the ugliest, most corrupt, disgusting. He's
a
like,
lot of weird stuff.
You want to escape to this town?
Yeah.
And they were killing everybody. And the poor black guy, these rich women, they all got together and they all had like voyeuristic sex with him. Then they all claim that he raped them, and so they hanged him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he's like, "What do you? I didn't even want to touch these. They were ugly, disgusting women."
Yeah, it's very brutal too. You know, and I'll bring out the son part in a second because that plays into this. But you know, when he does, they get through, they make the tunnel. And they're all coming out and they go into the town and immediately, and there's a fair amount of blood and like really good squib work in this movie too. You know, it didn't shy away from that like some other films would have. When someone gets shot, you're seeing it's that bright kind of red paint, you know, type blood. But I do love that in a 70s movie. It's just the time, you know?
Right.
And it also works with like the Technicolor scope. The skies are so blue. The sand is so tan and you get that red paint coming out. But when all the
kind of red, white, and blue, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. When all the cave people come out and they're just getting massacred by like this firing line is a pretty crazy moment. That's a really crazy moment. And man, this isn't people
and unlimited crazy moments.
Yeah, right. A lot. Yeah, the whole movie is crazy moments. And what's wild too is it reminds me, and I mean, I hope it's not too offensive to say this or anything, and sorry if it is, but it's crazy that they clearly got some real people that have these handicaps or deformities, disabilities. It reminded me quite a bit of the movie Freaks,
right,
by Todd Browning. If you ever saw that,
you'd have to immediately recognize that.
Yeah, completely takes me to that.
That one little girl that had the really skinny legs and her feet were facing.
Oh, yeah.
I was so upset to see her.
Yeah.
I was like, she needs some orthopedic surgery, like right away. Like, oh my God.
But yeah, that was a pretty brutal moment.
He had to collect those people to make that movie. Like, you know, I can't get a job in a movie, but here you go.
Yeah.
That was wrong saying that was wrong.
And, you know, even like you said too, like the guy with no arms, but the one that doesn't have any, and like I don't know. I see movies like this, and maybe it's the filmmaker in me, but and I wasn't too into the story and the aspects of this movie. I went for the ride. I'll say it outright. It's not for me. But I get caught up very much in like, man, if I could be a fly on the wall and how this movie was made and like who gave him the money to make this? Why did they give him the money to make it? What was it like when they're out in the desert? Was there a crafty table and like a grip truck? You know, right?
Yeah,
or or is it just them and they're just out and like what does that look like? Like the sound guy, what does that look like?
Feed the crew.
Yeah, it seems like one of these movies that just it feels like it happened, and I can't even imagine any kind of behind the scenes. And again, like getting the actors and hey, here's your costume, and we're gonna strap you, legless guy, onto this other dude, and good luck maneuvering and.
Just the locations
crazy.
Alone, they had several towns.
Yeah, that
were like ancient adobe ruins kind of places that were still somehow functional. And I mean, it was an amazing effort. This movie must have been an amazing effort. I don't know how many years it took to make it or what those circumstances were. I guess I should have researched a little.
Yeah, and I think I read that I
don't know that there's a lot of research available for this.
Yeah. I think I read that it was a $400K budget too. I hope I'm not mistaken. I feel like I read that earlier, but that's not, even at that time, that's not a lot of money. And the costumes are pretty legit. His whole black getup and everything, like
the Colonel,
all of them. And I just, you know, the Colonel gets killed and this and that. And I just, when that actor left for the day and like, here's your paycheck, I just can't imagine that.
I know, like,
thanks,
thank you.
Cheers, yeah.
Yeah,
and then the thing with Mara, and there's the other woman gunfighter.
Didn't even mention the other
all
woman.
Black.
They pick up a second woman.
Yeah,
and she whips her.
Yeah,
she whips Mara with a bullwhip and cuts up her back and everything.
And then makes out with her.
Right? Yeah. There's a lot of that sadism, masochism.
Yeah.
In there, people hurting each other and.
I did listen to someone review, and they had an interesting take on that. So I won't take credit for this at all. This wasn't for me, but from this reviewer, I don't remember their name, but you can probably find it if you want to look it up. They were talking about that aspect and how they believe, and maybe this is what it is, I don't know, but that the woman in black represents Mara.
Oh boy.
No. Kind of. I mean,
her dark side or something, or
well, individuality, right? And like finding her maybe her masculine quality and getting to the point of like, all right, yeah, I'm ready to. I don't necessarily need you. I can go off and do my own thing. Where so she finds individuality, and then Jodorowsky. Do they even say his name in the movie? Probably not.
I think it's Eli.
Eli, and then Iho is his son. And then Mara, yeah. I don't know, but something about her finding individuality, whereas at the same time he breaks down.
He says at one point, it's her or me. And she shoots him.
I don't even remember that. Shoot.
They're that's why he's shot. That's why he ends up in the cave people. They come.
Oh,
with tree
that's right.
And
That's
drag
right.
them away.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they're on that bridge. Right. That incredible.
That.
Like, where did they find that bridge in Mexico like that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like some of these things, if you had to build them, it's like the pyramids, right? If you had to build it, you couldn't.
Yeah, right.
Like if you had to
even
make
by
that bridge,
today's
that 400,000 for the movie, that just the bridge alone would have been 400,000.
Yeah.
And he crosses the bridge, and the two of them are there. And he says, you got to decide, is it going to be me or her or me? He sees them making out. And he says, okay, what's it going to be? She shoots him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty heavy decision. Like, okay, you could have just said,
Well, and she like appears and disappears too at random times. Like, she's there, she's not there. Yeah. Is it real? Is it not real?
And the horses. I mean, just the wrangler for the horses, right? Like all through this thing.
I guess because I don't want to go beat by beat through, but one thing I think I do have to bring up is the whole thing with his son, right? We skipped the moment where he has his son, takes him to some monks. He lives there, and then his son ends up coming to that town where they're building the tunnel, and he recognizes his father, wants to kill him. Well, I got to build this tunnel first. And so the son, and I like that now the son goes from monk to now he's in the all black, right? He's kind of taking on that, and he's just going to wait for him to finish, and he's gotta help, and he ends up not killing his father. Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess to sum it up for me, just like the movie review part of this, I probably will never watch this movie again. Maybe I'll give it one more shot. If there's like a movie theater screening at some point and I'm in the right headspace, maybe I'll check it out. But it's not for me. I ultimately didn't really care about it.
Care about anything because there's nothing rational.
Care about it. Like I don't, and all the kind of maybe surrealist or whatever aspects of it, the spiritual qualities. I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure there's thousands of people's different interpretations of what it is, what it means, and what it is for him.
Yeah, it's all up
I
for
just
grabs.
I just don't care. I just didn't care, to be honest. It did get me in a mode. Like one filmmaker that I have been getting into more, that has very long, philosophical, slow moving movies is Andrei Tarkovsky. I don't know if you've watched his films, but I was watching this and I'm just I want to watch Mirror again. I'm like, I just got The Sacrifice on Blu-ray, or no, I got Andrei Rublev on Blu-ray. I got to watch that. So I was kind of thinking like, I'd rather watch Tarkovsky.
I think he was even mentioned in a review of this.
Really?
Like things like
probably
other movies
sense.
you might want to see.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd say it's probably a recommend for anyone who's really into movies, like among cinephiles. You hear El Topo, you hear Holy Mountain,
Right.
The fact that he was almost going to do Dune, like my first intro to Jodorowsky. And when I first heard of this movie was actually in 2013. I went to a screening of Alien. It was a double feature of Alien and the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, which I think was fairly new at that time. Did you see that documentary?
No.
It's really good. It's worth checking out. So that was my first insight, and I wish I could have had time to watch that again, but they interview him and it's about how he was going to make Dune before Lynch and how he got
would be a good one for it.
Yeah, his son, if I remember correctly, would have been Paul Atreides, and how he got all these people in this screen. He called them his spiritual warriors, and they had all the artwork. They did a lot of work, and those key people, like I think it was Dan O'Bannon and H.R. Geiger, and I think a few others.
Hans Ruda Geiger is my man.
Like,
that's a weird creep guy.
Yeah, So
he made all that art for Alien.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's why they double featured it, because he put this team together and Dune fell through and all those guys went and did Alien. Like all together. It's like, so
right. They were the dream team.
Exactly. And it's like he kind of found them and brought them together, and then they all together ended up getting hired to do Alien, and obviously that became a masterpiece.
Alien is such a coherent movie.
Yeah.
Compared to this,
And this guy making Dune, that would have been really interesting. I think.
Yeah.
For me, sorry, I know I'm kind of like hijacking it right now, but I don't have too much else to say about it. I will ditto what you said. I think the cinematography is great. Good use of zoom lenses and the colors,
the
music.
Incredible.
But yeah, other than that, it's not for me. It's not for me.
I think it's the most extreme movie that I know. It's the most what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial, or you can interpret anything. You could see anything you want in this.
Yeah.
And this is one of these movies. My mother's favorite quote was, Fred can watch a 2-hour movie and tell you about it for 5 hours. This is that. Like this, to talk about this movie, you almost have to be watching it to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's hard to, at the end, there's so much happens. There's so many characters, because all the 4 gunfighters all have an entourage.
Yeah.
The colonel has an entourage. Like there's like probably 30 or 40, relevant characters in a completely irrelevant story that, and to see the nuances, I mean, it's almost pause. What are we looking at here? Like when they massacre the town, the blood splatter everywhere.
Yeah.
The people that are hanged, right? They go into church and there's just all these people that are hanged. And my God, every one of those scenes, just a still shot of that scene, to make that, just even if it was just a still shot, would be a whole day of work.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those, there's a saying like every frame a painting. Right. I feel like this is almost one of those movies where you can pull a still, like you said, from any shot in this, and it would be kind of a work of art. Man, I forgot about that moment, the walking through the church and the people hanging. Like, what a crazy crazy shot.
And they have that, when they have that big cone building, and the colonel finally comes out, his sycophantic friends are there. He comes out, and after he comes out, like 50 pigs come out the door that are in that building. Right. Like, what? Why have that? That had no relevance. That could have been cut from the movie. But yet somehow Jodorowsky, and we're going to have the 50 pigs come out.
Yes.
That means they had to get 50 pigs there.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone, you could have saved a couple $1,000. Who was the pig wrangler?
Yeah.
So, between that and the horses and all the rest of the stuff, really amazing. It's an amazing production. If you like surrealism, if you're a big fan of Salvador Dali and you like to see clocks melting in the desert, Dali could have never even done this.
Yeah, right.
Like, he would have said, I thought I knew something about surrealism. I could see I'm an amateur, because this is it, man. This is the top. And he has a few others, the Santa Sangria and everything that they're this way.
Yeah, you've watched them? Have you gone through his filmography, or
not all of them, but 2 other ones?
Okay.
Yeah, you got to be, like you said, in the right headspace. I mean, this isn't like, it's 9 o'clock at night. I think I'll watch Alejandro Jodorowsky movie.
Yeah.
I was really, really grateful to Umar for suggesting this. And I know you're out there. I know people are out there, and you've seen some movie, and you're the only one who knows about it, or you're part of a very elite group. I'd like, some of those, like Frank Zappa's 200 Motels. Have you ever seen that? So there are plenty of people who have. So this is one of the things I love about doing this, and especially having somebody like you, because have seen stuff I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me, the volume of movies that have been made, even just in America. Yeah. Not even including all these foreign films. Rating this movie is impossible. We need a different, we can't use a base 10 system. It's just one of a kind. And if you like it, it's a masterpiece. If you don't like it, it's complete bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing, it's not a sensible, so I guess I'll I'll rate it 10 for the real freaks and 2 for the meat and potatoes people.
I like that. I think I'm right there with you. I was always going to say 4, but 2 or 3 is probably closer to it for me.
Unless you're the kind of person that enjoys all those fantastic elements.
If you're into that, like, you're going to love it. So I see why this movie does have a fan base, and there's people that are deep into his movies and love that kind of stuff.
We did Good Christmas. We did it, and you had just had a New Year's movie. Right? Your favorite. This would be a Halloween movie.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
it really would, or some other. We don't even have the right. You know. Yeah. Like a Day of the Dead movie, maybe. Right. That's a holiday. That's all I have to say. I was thrilled that this was recommended. I want more recommendations. It just goes to show you how far out they can be. Thank you, Amr, and thank you all for watching. If you make it through this review. Appreciate that. Give us a comment, because if there was ever a movie that needed a comment, this is the one. Thumbs up. I'm not asking for that.
Yeah.
Do the best you can.
Yeah.
If you do, I'll kind of have an idea who you are. And we'll see you next time with a Lucid movie.